What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here alongside Josh Davis, and welcome into some breaking free agency news. We've been waiting over almost 2 hours Eastern time now for the Eagles to make their first move of NFL free agency, and it is finally official, Josh, as Philadelphia has signed free agent Bryce Huff, one of the top pass rushers in this entire free agent class, and it's a pretty darn good deal. You see it here from Adam Schefter, a 3-year, $51.1 million deal, making him one of the highest paid pass rushers so far, and means that maybe a trade for Haason Reddick and Josh Sweat could be coming soon. First off, initial thoughts here on the Eagles getting Huff. This was rumored all week long.
Yeah, you're right. It was rumored all week long. I'm excited about it just in terms of the potential, like we talk about. There's some negatives that we can get into, or just some ramifications like you're talking about for Haason Reddick or Josh Sweat. But just ultimately, I mean, you take a look at the deal, right? I mean, like 17-ish million a year, that's not too bad considering where the market's been. If you've been keeping track or following anything with free agency, you know, we've been back and forth on Twitter just like, wow, hey, this is kind of a shocking number because it's surprising. But with the salary cap increasing and the inflation there, this is great. I mean, Bryce Huff, the potential he has, and we've done shows about it, talked about him, you know, in a couple different areas, but it's like the pass rush win rate that he has, the pass rush efficiency that he has, the youth that you've been talking about. I mean, heck, it's close to a 3-year 45 that Haason Reddick was signed to. So, you know, there's a lot of potential for him to maybe outplay the contract. And I've seen a lot of people tweeting about that on Twitter as well. But ultimately, I'm a big fan of this. I think this is a great move. We talk about you have to get younger, especially, you know, hey, right, wrong, or indifferent, we may not like it, but it feels very unlikely that Haason Reddick is going to move off of his 25 million number because if he sees these contracts of him, a Jonathan Grenard, these other contracts that are happening, he doesn't need to. He can just wait it out because someone is probably going to be willing to pay him that based on the contracts and based on the market. So, you know what? If you're Howie, you say, we move on. We try to get younger. We try to get some youth. I'm curious and interested to get your thoughts too. The only, I don't know, I wouldn't say major knock, but the potential concern is Bryce Huff has been kind of a situational pass rusher, right? So you bring him in here if we'll see how it plays out with Haason Reddick or Josh Sweat, you know, and everything else. But the assumption is you pay money like that, that is going to be a starter. Do you feel like there's any concerns there that he can live up to expectations or you give him additional snaps? You know, where does he fall in there as far as playing a little bit more often?
Well, listen, I think that Philadelphia knows what they're doing, and I think Vic Fangio was heavily involved in this, signing. Now, I also think it means that with Reddick, as we mentioned, and probably Josh Sweat, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I think that this means that they're very confident in his ability to be a starting pass rusher in a Vic Fangio defense. I mean, even in a situational, playing style last year with the New York Jets, he had 10 sacks, and that's on a roster that's loaded with really good pass rushers on a very good defense. He was still able to, quote-unquote, get his, and obviously you see some of his highlights here from his time in college at Memphis. Absolutely fantastic signing. And as you mentioned, for the price is the real key here because it's about $17 million a year. It comes out to about that much in terms of a 3-year deal. There's a lot of incentives being added on as well, and so it can obviously change. But we keep talking about all week long, Reddick wants $25 million a year. And so you just got somebody who's 25 years old, basically 5 years younger than Haason Reddick, who still had double-digit sacks this past year, way more upside in terms of longevity in his career. We keep talking about Reddick having 2, maximum 3 good years left. You get over the age of 30 and things start to kind of really fall off a cliff. And again, still double-digit sacks and someone Philadelphia clearly wanted. They were rumored to be interested and very much trying to get him basically as early as last week, I think was the first mention that I saw. But Philadelphia grabbing him right now is a absolutely fantastic move. And I think this is the first of many dominoes to go ahead and fall. We can talk about those here in a second. But clearly what Philadelphia understands is that they're probably losing one of their 2 pass rushers in either Josh Sweat or Haason Reddick. We don't know who. We don't know one, both. Josh Sweat, Haason Reddick, but clearly one of them is gone with this move, and I would assume that they had to get this move done first, make sure that some other team didn't swoop in, like the Houston Texans, who got their pass rusher a couple of hours ago, and steal Bryce Huff before they can make the Josh Sweat or Haason Reddick trade officially official. And so this is the first big domino. Lana Dickerson fell, obviously, before free agency started. That was a contract extension, but this is something that Philadelphia needed to do and was rumored to be very heavily involved in trying to get as many defensive pieces in free agency as possible. And the good news is, Josh, they got a lot of money left over, but the money on this one, so far, so good for the Eagles.
Absolutely. Yep. Again, we talk about just the ramifications of the free agency market, and shout out to everybody in the chat too for hanging out. I know it's been a little bit of an unusual, I will say, just in terms of the NFL legal tampering period. It's used to like as soon as it drops, all the deals are getting done. So it's kind of like the league might have said, hey, let's temper the immediately announcing things, to try to get things worked
Right.
out. But yes, you're right. I think that it does tell the story of, if you're Howie, there's no way that you say, oh, hey, there's a potential of maybe we keep Haason Reddick, or maybe we keep both Haason Reddick and Josh Sweat, and then you go ahead and make this acquisition.
Very
Like,
unlikely.
it's going to happen very quickly, and I would imagine it'll happen at some point today, because you'd have to think that you have, I mean, just about a solidified buyer, right? Like, you don't go ahead
Right.
and say, "Hey, we're bringing you in, but hey, Haason, we'll try to figure something out, or we're going to still see if we get trade." Because you also like negate your trade value. Now that you have this team,
Yes.
come and say, "Well, hey, now you've got your pass rusher now, so you don't really need Haason, or you're not going to get as much for him because there's not as much of a market there." So, yeah, I'll be interested to see who that ends up playing. I think scheme wise, though, too, that's another piece that we could talk about. But Bryce Huff is going to fit very well within a Vic Fangio scheme. Again, you mentioned the athletic piece of that. There's also talk of, like, to me, it almost make more sense of, if you're going to, look at the scheme of Josh Sweat not being there as much as Haason Reddick, really. I mean, because, you
Right.
look at what Fangio likes to do. So I think there's a lot to like with a Bryce Huff. Nolan Smith, we've mentioned too. I mean, he's going to get more snaps. Curious to see what the Eagles utilize him on that side. But yeah, it's this is the first domino, as we've been talking about, and
Domino
there's
one.
many more to come. Question of, we've seen all the, I see the comments too and everything else, but Saquon Barkley, is that going to happen pretty soon? Who knows? It's heating up. There's lots of things there. Interesting. Josh Jacobs signing with the Packers. That's kind of a
Very
weird one.
interesting.
But hey, this is the beauty and craziness of NFL free agency, and here we are.
Let's just be very clear about what this says for Philadelphia, at least for the next couple of days as free agency kicks off. And again, just because free agency is today, Saquon can keep waiting. He clearly was waiting for the running backs to go before him, including Swift and Rashad Penny, it was Tony Pollard at Tennessee, and then obviously the new one with Josh Jacobs. He can wait till Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to make things officially official. But all we kept hearing was that Philadelphia wanted young pass rushers and young defensive players on multi-year contracts. And so Xavier McKinney's name has been thrown around a lot. I think there are other teams really trying to go ahead and grab him, being the youngest of all the safeties on the free agent market. But Bryce Huff was the other indicator. If they signed him, then this whole idea of multi-year deals for young, up-and-coming, close to star players, whatever you want to call them. 10 sacks to me is a star player, but that's, up for debate, was what Howie wanted to do, and that clearly seems to be the indication right now. That would indicate to me, too, that Saquon would be on a multi-year contract, whether that happens today or tomorrow. I think it is going to happen. We can talk about that here in a second, but Bryce Huff comes to Philadelphia and maybe help solidify a defensive line that's going to go through a lot of change over the next couple of months. I mean, literally, Fletcher Cox has retired. You are no longer going to have either Josh Sweat, Haason Reddick, or both. And plus, you have these new rumors, and I'm sure that you saw this late last week, Josh, that there was some issues on the Eagles' defensive line, and Lane Johnson kind of hinted at that during the Eagles, closing press conferences, where he was basically saying that there's some people who aren't really committed right now, who are struggling to, stay focused, who might have been a little bit of a, I don't know what the right word is there, just bad teammates during the Eagles' losing streak, and a lot of people think that might have been Josh Sweat or that might have been Haason Reddick. Bryce Huff comes in at 25 and is going to be a much, I'd say, stronger breath of fresh air for a Philadelphia Eagle defensive line that, again, is going to have a lot of changes, but hopefully it's for the better. And Howie Roseman does something that Howie Roseman always does. That's invest on the defensive line. He did the offensive line with Landon Dickerson a couple of hours ago. Now gets his pass rusher. Now maybe he can start to have some fun with some skilled players coming up later today.
Yes, I'm right there with you. Again, you try to get ahead of it, and people asking about questions of Bryce Huff and everything else. Greg Cosell was talking about it. Shout out on Inside the Birds, but he was there, but breaking down Bryce Huff and kind of the benefits that he brings to the team. So it was, I guess, probably as of maybe a week or a week and a half ago, like you were talking about, was the first time that Bryce Huff had even been, I guess, realistically linked to the Eagles, or, hey, there's potential rumored interest, maybe something happened in there. But yes, like, Bryce Huff is good, and I won't be surprised if he outplays this number. Now, I know some people are like, wow, that's $51 million for a dude that's like this. But again, I mean, go look around the rest of the league and some of the deals that have already been done, as of today, just at a number of different positions. And it's going to be a little strange. Like, you're going to come away from this just, not taking it, if you're just a quick glance, it's like, wow, that's a really high contract for someone. But, with the 14% increase, the inflation there, I think this is a great deal. You're going to maximize your potential. And it's not surprising, certainly from the sense of, like, the Eagles getting younger, because Howie's mentioned it multiple times in press conferences, say, hey, we do have to get younger, particularly at defense. And those are the positions that you're trying to target. So, I think this also speaks to you don't have to break the bank. It is a significant signing for sure. I mean, obviously, 17 million a year, but you're not
Right.
breaking the bank in a sense. And hopefully you save a little bit of money, maybe make a trade, free up some more cap space as well. And who knows, maybe you're looking at a safety coming on board. You do have to figure out something with the running back. I don't think Kenny G is the only option you're wanting to go in there, but we might be at a little bit of a difference in terms of Saquon Barkley. But again, in terms of this Bryce Huff position here, I'm totally in favor of it.
He is a good player, and obviously I see that in the comment section because a lot of people didn't watch the Jets last year because the Jets were terrible. But the best part of the Jets was the Jets' defense and the Jets' pass rush. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, the Jets have a lot of other really good pass rushers. They have one of the best defensive tackles in the league in Quinnen Williams, giving a lot of opportunities for Bryce Huff to have one-on-ones. And when he was one-on-one, you see it on your screen, he was a disruptor. 10-plus sacks this past season. Again, much cheaper than Haason Reddick, much cheaper than Josh Sweat will be going into a final year of his 2024 contract. So if you had to re-sign him with 2025, he'd want a lot more money than this. And the upside is the signing here for Philadelphia to hopefully get one of these next-generation pass rushers to come into Philadelphia and become one of the better ones on this roster. You got to remember, you have Jalen Carter, you have Jordan Davis, you have Milton Williams. You have interior pressure that is already very, very good. Jalen Carter, year 2, Jordan Davis, year 3. The expectation is they're going to be great. That gives you one-on-one chances on the outside for Bryce Huff. He was able to do that, do very well with the Jets, and hopefully it's going to go ahead and happened this season. Let's just go ahead and mention Saquon Barkley right now. And again, you're watching this live. Nothing has happened. There was a brand new report a couple of minutes ago suggesting that the Eagles have officially made a contract offer to Saquon Barkley. They are still weighing that contract offer, and he is very much battling for more money and using the Houston Texans as leverage for that. So it seems to be a situation where it will either be the Houston Texans, and obviously there's a serious relationship between Saquon Barkley and CJ Stroud. They've been recruiting him heavily so far. However, it does seem to be a situation where it's between two teams for Saquon Barkley, and let's just say it right now. I'm all in on Saquon Barkley. I was very, very hesitant going through this process. 2 weeks ago, I might have said maybe, you can re-sign DeAndreSwift for cheaper. Once you realize that DeAndreSwift is getting $8.25 million for the next 2 years, and then a third year with a little bit less overall from, I'm blanking, with the Chicago Bears, it tells you that Saquon at 11 or 12, to me, is a very, very good option for Philadelphia. Clearly, they offered Swift cheaper and would have gone with him had he taken a more team-friendly deal. Swift got paid by the Bears. Congratulations to him. Chicago wants to be the Philadelphia of the Midwest because they got Kevin Byard as well for a lot of money. But Saquon on just $3 or $4 million a year more than what you could have had, technically DeAndreSwift, to me, is a good move.
Yeah, I agree in the sense of if you're paying Swift that much. However, we're a little bit of I've said it before. It's the unpopular opinion of I don't know if Saquon. You got to get an answer there. I'm with everyone who says okay, hey, Kenny G's not the answer. As I'm seeing that Kirk Cousins to Atlanta, so right there in your backwoods. Yes. But
that is official.
I'm not saying Saquon wouldn't be good. Like people, as soon as I tweeted that, are like, "Oh my gosh, you're ridiculous!" Like, it's like Saquon would be great on this offense. He would make the team incredible. But just cost wise, I'm thinking there's other options. There's a way to save some more money, and still, we do need to, get a safety. We probably need to get a linebacker, and we might need to add a couple other positions as well at the defensive side. So, To me, I'm like. It seems like it's, a possibility a lot more realistically because you got Diana Rossini and others of legit reporting saying that it is heating up. And so maybe it is. It is a possibility, but I will still hold to the disbelief until it's literally like, here's the tweet, here's the confirmation. That's where I'm at.
What is clearly happening as we quickly here throw up Kirk Cousins to Atlanta, I know people, I'm not saying that I knew this was for sure, but people that I know very close to the teams have been saying this for weeks. So this is not a massive surprise for people like me in the ATL. It's a 4-year deal, and now you're going to have to watch the Justin Fields situation to see what the Vikings are going to do. Very clearly quarterback needy with a Justin Jefferson getting a brand new contract going into the 2024 draft. Good draft to need a quarterback, but Cousins, that's the big domino. A lot of teams were waiting to see what happens with Cousins before making other moves, and so things could kind of progress here. My big thing that I truly believe is happening right now is Saquon is trying to get the most amount of money he possibly can. So Saquon is saying, I want to be an Eagle, or he's been hinting and linking to the media, I want to be an Eagle, I want to be an Eagle. The Houston Texans have $30 more million than the Philadelphia Eagles. I know people are asking, there was a super chat here a couple of seconds ago from Kelso, says, how much money do we have left for the years? Well, it varies, but it's about $17 million, so you still have well over $30-ish million in cap space, but depends on the contract structure of the Bryce Huff signing. We don't know where the money is, if it's front-loaded, back-loaded, so they still have a lot of money. Let's just make that very, very clear. But clearly Saquon is going between the Texans and the Eagles and saying, okay, well, Philly just offered me $11 million a year. The Houston Texans go, okay, we'll give you 12. And then he goes back to the Eagles and say, well, what about 12.5? They're going to go back and forth until Saquon is very comfortable with the number. I think being from basically Philadelphia, kind of in the area, New Jersey, Philly is the draw here for Saquon Barkley. He was kind of hinting at wanting to be an Eagle way back whenever he was drafted number 2 overall by the Giants. I think that he wants to be an Eagle, but if the Texans come out here and offer $15+ million a year, that's where things start to change and he can become a Houston Texan. But again, 26 years old, he's had injuries. Obviously, he's not a guarantee to be a superstar going forward, although I think he would be behind this Eagle offensive line. That is the final really determining factor for Saquon Barkley right now as we continue to talk about Bryce Huff, the first official signing for Philadelphia. Plus, let's just be real here. Texan offensive line, Eagle offensive line. The Eagles just made really a all-pro superstar left guard, the highest paid guard in the league because of how good they are at run blocking. AndreSwift was a 1,000-yard back in this system. If you're Saquon Barkley, you sign a 3-year deal, 2-year deal, 3-year option, whatever it is, you come play behind this offensive line in this offense with Kellen Moore, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown. I mean, come on. If you're Saquon Barkley, what's an extra $2 million to go to the Houston Texans and maybe be a good team in the AFC and have to play Patrick Mahomes every single year? No thanks.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. I think if you're weighing the options between, if you're Saquon Barkley and all things else are being equal, yeah, you pick Philly. I don't know why you would not go in that direction. So shout out to Lar Powell who says, help the boys out for breaking news. Give a like. Yes, give a like.
Yes,
and also,
please.
If you want Saquon Barkley, give a like because apparently it helps somehow.
I think a lot of people want him. I think the majority of Eagle fans want him now.
It does seem like that. Apparently, we have offered him. Now,
yes.
Who knows if
and
how much we're going to be able to. But I've seen multiple. Jeff Kerr, I think, was maybe the first one that had reported that, but a couple others have confirmed that there's an offer at least out there. But again, to your point, it's like Saquon is trying to, understandably, right? I mean, you're to maximize. We would all be doing the exact same thing. Like, I'm going to maximize my worth. And if I'm sitting there saying like, bro, Tony Pollard just got 3 years for 24 and DeAndre got 3 years for 24. Like, I'm Saquon Barkley. Like, I get, you could say, cool, those guys have some potential and, age and all this other stuff. But like, I'm Saquon Barkley. So I'm going to sit there and try to get as much as I can. I know that there's a mutual interest and people say that, can certainly change things for what you might want or be willing to sacrifice. But a pay cut for Saquon Barkley is still above those guys in terms of the financial ramifications. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the offer officially is. Even if he doesn't make it to Philly, eventually an offer will get leaked. I mean, we'll figure out like, hey, here was what it was for Saquon. But I'm curious. This is I mean, not going to lie. Even the fact that they're offering him, I think that tells you that
it's real.
It's different than Howie Rose. It's real, but it's different than, typical Howie Rose because it would normally be like, oh, hey, pay a running back, bigger money of sorts. You still don't know exactly what it is. He sees his chance. So he's saying, hey, let's bolster that offense. I will say I'm totally on board with, again, Saquon is much better.
Right.
And pass blocking for a running back was atrocious for the most part for us, whether it was DeAndreSwift, certainly Rashad Penny, the very limited times he's out there was terrible. And Kenny Gainwell was okay. He was serviceable. He had some good pass blocking at times. But, Saquon makes it incredibly different. And so if you're talking about blitz pickup, you're going to try to help Jalen in this offense. Kellen Moore, like you were bringing up as well. It does make a whole lot of sense there. It's just the financial sense on my side that I'm still going to hold to, even though there is a potential offer out there. I still don't see it happen.
Let's quickly circle back to the Bryce Huff situation because obviously that's the only signing Philadelphia's had. If you're just joining us, welcome in 1,700 people, watching right now. A lot of people asking how much cap space Philadelphia has left. We don't know the details of the contract other than the fact that it is simply a 3-year, $51 million deal. That's about $17 million a year, but we don't know if it's front-loaded or back-loaded. So if the Eagles want to go big fish hunting for a Xavier McKinney and a Saquon Barkley, they can backload the Bryce Huff contract. We got to get more details on that. We don't know as of right now. What we do know is what Adam Schefter added at the bottom of his tweet. You see it here from WIP. They are continuing to take trade calls on Josh Sweat and Haason Reddick. Obviously, not before WIP has that. It's per Adam Schefter. This is going to be a domino that will fall most likely today. I'll be honest here. The Bryce Huff signing, we opened with this. Great for Philadelphia. 50,000-foot view. He's 25 years old, had double-digit sacks last year. Great. Okay. You go over here to what it means a little bit closer, 25,000 foot view, come down. You've got to get rid of one or two of these players. And if you're asking me, I would keep Reddick if you could get the right price for him. But my guess is you ship Reddick away and you would keep Josh Sweat if they do keep one. Because Reddick is going to get $25 million a year. Somebody's going to offer him $25 million a year. It's not going to be Philadelphia after signing Huff. If you can't find a trade partner for both, if Josh Sweat's trade value isn't that great, you keep him. He plays in the final year of his deal, and you lose him for nothing in free agency, which isn't ideal. But again, you would keep him along with Bryce Huff, and it would give you kind of a really good 1-2 combo, plus Nolan Smith, plus Brandon Graham. So it's worth noting that they're still fielding calls here. My guess is we will have another live show when this thing breaks, and of course another live show when the Saquon Barkley news starts as well.
Yes, we will be, like you said, live all day. We're literally sitting here, I mean, just constantly, like we were talking about, just constantly scrolling through, making sure, updating everything else. So as soon as anything else happens, that's going to be us. But I am with you. Also, just wanted to point out, because I had some questions about comp picks, and that is a thing. However, like the whole AndreSwift situation, even probably not going to get anything back. I mean, realistically, we know just coming into this free agency period, the Eagles are going to be aggressive, how he's targeting several different players. We have holes to fill, all these things. So most likely you're going to sign more than you give away, and which will ultimately result in no comp picks. Now, could be wrong. You could end up with some if he does not, but just to throw that out there as well, just comp pick wise, probably won't have anything else of note. So we will see.
If you have not hit the like button yet, 1,700 people, you can please hit the like button. We'd greatly appreciate that. We only have 200 likes. If you're excited for free agency day, come on. This is like, besides the draft, it's the best day in the NFL offseason. Give this show a thumbs up as Philadelphia has officially signed Bryce Huff. You've seen some of his highlights here with the New York Jets. Again, young, upside, upside, upside. We knew how we wanted to go young on the defense. My question is, what is going to happen at the safety position, Josh, as we shift away from Saquon Barkley? He's kind of the fun fish that we're trying to fry because he's a skill player, and it's Saquon Barkley, right? Saquon Barkley coming to the division rivals, and we're in midnight green and playing the Giants twice a year. It'd be very, very fun. Safety, though, was seemingly the big-ticket item. It was the one that the Eagles were very much trying to go after. Xavier McKinney's name of the New York Giants was getting thrown around like crazy. They went with another New York offensive or another New York free agent in terms of Bryce Huff. Do you think that they're going to still try to get a young safety, not a Simmons, not a Quandre Diggs, 20 or 30, 31 years old? Are they going to still try to get a young safety today?
Yeah, I would think that they're not content. I would love for it to be, a bigger name. But again, when you start making deals like this, it's like, okay, writing's on the wall. There's probably less likely. But I can't imagine that you freed up cap space with the Kevin Byard situation. Obviously, he's over to Chicago, but you released him previously. Get some extra cap situation. Sidney Brown, you're looking at, is not going to be ready for the start of the season unless, I guess we've seen crazier things happen, but realistically, the report is probably October, so he won't be available. You can't go into it, in my mind, saying, hey, we got Reed Blankenship, we got a Tristan McCollum, we got, a couple others that I'm just drawing a blank on, practice squad, Mekhi Gardner. There's no legit options, especially with this safety class, and knowing you can get guys for cheap. I mean, look at some of the bigger name, semi, kind of like a little bit mid-tier or whatever, but it's like $6.5 million, right? Tyrann Mathieu got a contract for $6.5 million a year. Like, that tells you where the market's at. So again, if you don't even want a top echelon guy, but just someone who's serviceable and going to be, able to play some snaps for you, maybe start some games, a little stopgap in between until Sidney Brown is ready, whatever it is, you probably get a guy for like $3 million a year. And so I would say, yeah, you're probably going to see a deal get done at safety. I would like for it personally, whether, if it's Xavier McKinney would be awesome. I think Justin Simmons would be really good too, having some veteran leadership, playing with Fangio. But again, it may not be realistic in terms of what Howie Roseman is trying to do, but we'll see. I'm curious. Tons more news. I will be shocked. There's almost no way this is going to be the only news today. There's so many things to happen. And like you brought up earlier, Howie Roseman is fielding calls for Josh Sweat and Haason Reddick. They will likely be moved very quickly because, at the same time, I mean, Howie needs to get this done too, to be able to move on and continue building the roster and adding in some other areas and have a game plan going on that side. So as much as we will be disappointed to see just from an emotional perspective, Reddick and Sweat, it's not out of the question that one or even both, honestly, get shipped away, depending on the deals they get. So we will see.
If you have not hit the sub buttons, hit the sub buttons right now. Turn on your notifications as well. The plan for Josh and I today is we go live when something happens. If nothing happens for about 30 minutes, end the video. That way people can find the video in our subscription boxes. You guys can rewatch the whole breakdown. But then when things happen again, we go right back live. We're ready to rock for every single potential free agent. And remember, there's a lot out there. Obviously, Saquon Barkley, obviously Xavier McKinney. If Philadelphia wants to give a lot of money to Saquon and then spend a little bit less on safety, Justin Simmons, Quandre Diggs, there are a ton of safety names out there right now. But you also got to remember, Philadelphia has been linked to a ton of other players, linebackers. What happens with Patrick Queen? Azeez Al-Shire out of Tennessee, a little bit cheaper of an option, potentially coming to Philadelphia. You got to remember, Derrick Henry, if you get, stolen by the Houston Texans when it comes to money for Saquon Barkley, a little bit older is Derrick Henry. Obviously, big BFFs with A.J. Brown. Does Derrick Henry become an option for Philadelphia if they want to pivot? Because now, before we wrap this show up, Josh, running back is a massive need. And I saw comments seeing Blake Corum, as your RB1 in 2024. Blake Corum's going to be hard to get unless you want to spend either your first-round draft pick or trade up in the second round. He's not going to stay on the board very, very long, and I would not want to head in the NFL draft needing to rely on Blake Corum to be able to run the football in 2024.
Yeah, you're really not going to probably spend significant draft capital, I would imagine, if you're high. Maybe if you solidify other areas and how he goes, hey, we're going to go try to draft a running back, but I can't imagine that's where they would go. So,
right.
Yeah, you're looking at what are the options still in free agency. Derrick Henry naturally moved on from a couple different teams, was the report. So the Eagles could be in play. Maybe there's something there backdoor. If the report, about a year ago was correct in the Eagles being interested in Derrick Henry. Maybe there's something there, if there's not as much of a market, but it is a little bit interesting because we're hearing a ton about
Saquon
Barkley.
Done. Saquon is done. Saquon is done. All right.
There you go.
Should we wrap up and move to Saquon? What do you want to do? You want to end this one and start a new one? Let's make the decision.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
End this one, jump on another one. We'll be
back in 2 seconds. Stay tuned. Saquon is official.